growing up thinking, hearing about slavery, being in the South, I just never thought about the fact that
the Indigenous Americans and the Africans combined.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you were in a perfect place to ask about that, because here in Beaufort County, when you drove onto St. Helena, there are two islands that sit on the side of St. Helena, Dato Island and Palawana Island. Most people are not familiar with either one of those islands. I am, because that is where my father's side of the family are from. Dato is named after Chief Dato, who was no doubt a Kusabo Indian. Okay, Palawana Island, which sits right next to it, was actually the first Indian reservation signed into law in the United States. I didn't find that out until I was a grown woman doing my own research for my own books on Gullah Geechee culture. And I decided I wanted to find out, what did these names of where I live mean? I knew they were Native American names. Edisto, Paniwani, we call it Palawana, Dato, I knew that. Yamasee, but why, what do they mean? Where did these names come from?
Right.
I started going to Native American museums and libraries trying to find out. God had it, I went to New York and they opened the Native American Museum on right downtown, almost before you go to Staten Island Ferry.
Okay.
And I was like, what? I didn't want to go there just to see what this place looks like. Well, I go to visit the exhibits and here's a library. Well, that's one of my drugs of choice, books.
Yes.
So I see books. It's like, hey, gotta go in there.
Right.
Can I go in there? They're like, yeah, it's pumping. Yay, right?
Right.
Forget the exhibit. I'm in the library.
That's right.
So now I find an entire section of Indian place names. And here I start finding the names of the very islands down here as part of the list.
Wow.
I asked, can I photocopy? They're like, yeah, it's whatever, 10, 25 cents or whatever it was at that time per copy. Not a problem. This is what I do. I'm always ready with that. Copy, 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 copy. This becomes material for my book. The very last book I look in.
And which book is this?
There's a point, I can't even tell you.
The one you wrote.
Oh, the one that I wrote? Oh, this one is God Done Smile Upon We, the Beaufort Isles. And so when I end up looking at this last book on the shelf, it turns out Palawana is in there. I could have dropped the book on the floor because I've never found another book ever with that island name in it. So I'm like, are you kidding? Literally this much is on the page. When I go in the back, you know how we do. You go in the back.
I got to find it, right?
Find it.
Yeah.
It's 79. You know? Okay, did that, got to the page, scanned down the page, bam, it's that long. And it says Palawana Island was written to be an Indian reservation. And they were determined that they were going to put all the Indians on there and they would either basically succumb or die.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So again, I could drop the book because my stomach gets sick.
Right.
That was your plan. And you also were that arrogant to write it down. That you were going to come on somebody else's land and plan it. They need to do what you tell them to do. Or you're going to push them in this one place and starve them out. Sick. My family still owns a lot of Palawana Island because that is where my grandfather came from and his father's father. My grandmother is the one from Dato. And so it made it more clear why she looked like she looked, why she did some of the stuff she did, why she could make pottery and do all kind of stuff. You know, growing up, my aunts and my sister, and they were much older than me, and all of them never understood how come she knew that stuff. But now when I say to them, she knew it because she was Native American. Her mother's mother and all them, they were, quote, Indian people. Then they married the Gullah Geechee. So that's a come, we're black and Indigenous American, although you may not look at all the family and immediately say that. You would just say, oh, they're black, you know, they're Gullah Geechee. But we also have Indigenous ancestry. So that, of course, led to me wanting to know more about the reconnection, I call it, of these Indigenous peoples. And so here it was that all the lifestyles were so similar. The practices are so similar. The way you catch fish, going what we call gigging, you know, gigging to catch fish, same thing the Indigenous Americans did. Okay, so the way you grow food, your foodways are similar. The way you make certain things are similar. So now that's an easy match then, you know, in terms of coupling. So you have people living side by side, but you also have people intermarrying. These folks, I find out, get renamed because those who don't remain on the plantation islands where the cotton, the rice, and indigo are being grown end up living on little side islands that are called hummocks. The little 10-acre or less islands, they started living there in their own communities. They weren't going to continue to be enslaved. So they would raid the plantation islands back and forth. These are who become known as Seminole because they take the Spanish word cimarron, meaning wild or exiled, and label them as Seminole or Seminole in other places you would even call it. So now when they write of them, these Seminoles are blah, 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 these Seminoles are blah, blah, blah. It's not until this war is going on and it's starting to go through, it's now Florida, because them in Georgia, into Florida, and these battles are continuing, that now someone writes, there are more Negroes in this war than there are Indians.
Yes.
And that one piece of history that was documented tells the whole story. And that's why now, when I meet up with Seminoles, and I start to crack my teeth like this shit, it's, oh, how you know that? I said, how I know that? This is Gullah, that's Seminole. So when you go to Texas and you go to Oklahoma, they call it Seminole. And they think their language is Seminole. So when I visit them and I speak Gullah to them, they always want to get the oldest people around me because the younger ones have forgotten it. They know they can understand it, they can't talk to me. So they go get the oldest ones and they go, talk to them.
Talk to them.
Right? And when I start talking to them, get loud and over there. But look, y'all, and then what is amazing is when the one or two family members come over from Mexico, and I get to talk to them because they speak Seminole with Spanish in it.
Wow.
So now you have Gullah with Spanish in it.
Wow.
And fortunately, I know some Spanish, so I can still communicate with them. But they're like, wow. And what's funny is they sound funny to us, and we sound funny to them because the accents or certain words have changed, and that's just because of geography. But the meanings are the same.
Right.